A man who brought Odysseus back to life. A man who went 3 levels deeper into the world of dreams, risking everything to find his way back home. A man who looked into the end of time and saved us from it. Christopher Nolan.
In this video, I'll show you how 3D animation in DaVinci Resolve can transform a flat shot into something with real depth and scale. Visuals inspired by the cinematic language of Christopher Nolan. First thing I do is go to Effects and search for Fusion Composition. Drop it and trim it to match the length of my video. Then we jump into Fusion. Inside Fusion, we need to build a 3D space. For that, in Media Out, we add a Renderer 3D, Camera 3D, and a Merge 3D, plus an Image Plane 3D. Then we connect everything as simple as possible, nothing fancy here. Media Out shows up in the right viewer. To see Merge in the left viewer, we click on it and hit the number 1 key, and it's basically done. And now it shows on the left. Now we connect the Image Plane 3D to the Merge, grab the camera and pull it back a bit so we can actually see our image. And now we can start building the composition. For this, we go into the asset pack. The link will be in the video description. If you're wondering how I made these assets, here is the deal. I found a handful of reference images on Pinterest, then I went and used AI to generate a picture that would be my final reference image. Once that was done, I started breaking it apart into layers, adding new ones to build up a depth. And that's basically how I ended up with these assets. So as I said, we go into the asset pack and drag in our assets. That's it. Our assets are basically ready, then we can start to connect them. First thing I want to do is to connect the layer 3 to image plane. This will be our final furthest back layer, so I want to scale it up quite a lot to leave plenty of space between it and the camera, because if we want that parallax effect, the Christopher Nolan style shot, we need the room to breathe. Then I want to add a different merge 3D just because I like keeping this in its own merge node, just being organized. And then same deal with layer 2. Connect it through an image plane, pull it closer to the camera to build the parallax effect and scale it up so it sits in the middle and fully covers the frame. Next, I create an image plane for the Cooper and one for the Murph and pull them slightly in front of layer 2. Literally just copy the image plane and paste a matching one for the girl. And obviously here you can tweak it a bit, nudge her left, arrange the composition however you like. Basically play around with it. How you build the composition from here is really just a personal taste. Then we go to the layer 1, same thing, image plane, connect it into the merge and pull it closer to the camera. Again, we're chasing that parallax feel. Objects right up close to the camera, objects in the middle and objects far away, all to build that depth into the shot. Now I just copy the layer and paste it again, connect it into the merge, so we got 2 of them. That gives us even more depth. And going to transform using the Z-axis, rotation Z, we can spin it a bit. And now we do the same thing with layer 2, just copy it, paste it twice more again to add depth. Just connect them and push them further back. Why do we do that? To create depth and realism, so it's not just empty space back there, there are actually objects that create motion as the camera moves. But this only works if we scale them up. First, they need to fully cover the background, scale them to the right size, position them however you want, and to make it more interesting, feel free to rotate them a bit. Second layer, third layer, you just have to rotate them quite in the same direction. And now we get much more interesting, almost surreal looking image. Yeah, it's not exactly a Christopher Nolan accurate shot, but it's definitely inspired by him, and honestly it looks about as epic as it gets in my opinion, so I'll leave it like this. So next I take a look at everything I've added, looks like we're good. Now let's move on to camera movements. For that we go into transform and drop a couple of keyframes. Z on transform and Z on rotation. We keyframe them on both the last frame and the first frame. As you see, the last frame, first frame, and nothing between them. And next we need to set the starting camera position. I mean, it's already good to go. Then we go to the last frame and push in as close as we want final shot to be. This way we get a shot where objects fly past us as we push in towards our characters. It is like super engaging for me. Something else I want to do, add even more depth by simply throwing in another layer. Copy, paste, attach to the merge, pull it back a bit from the camera, and now we've got 3 layers. I go back into transform, rotate it a bit on the Z-axis, and you can scale it up a little bit, you can do everything to match the size of the frame, and now the depth of the shot is maxed out, as good as it gets. So next, back to camera, remember we also keyframed rotation Z. So the camera path isn't a straight line. The final frame is already keyframed. Now we go back to the first frame and start rotating the camera toward wherever it looks good. This gives us a nicely curved camera move, not a straight push in, but something that feels a little more natural thanks to that rotation. But as you can see, the last frame looks great while the first one is a little unfinished, and to fix that we bump up the scale of the last layer so it fully fills the frame, and same with the layer closest to us. It's not quite reaching the edges, so we just scale it up a touch, and now our frame is fully done. So if the camera move looks good, worth watching a few times to check the details, we move on to adding text on our layers. I create a new merge for this just to keep everything tidy and organized. I go to text, drag in an image plane to plug the text into the image plane and the image plane into the merge. I pull the image plane forward from wherever it originally landed so we can actually see it, which obviously requires typing something first. Now we can see the text and nudge it to wherever I want it positioned. I want the text to be the part of the exposure itself. I want it to be a part of the things we're flying through. So what I do, I just swap the font to something I like, maybe adjust the size to fit. Then I go into shadings, I choose gradient, leave the black side alone for now, but change the white to something yellowish pulled from the shot. Not too dim, a bit brighter, let's see how it looks. And I would also lighten the black color, more of a brownish tone rather than a pure black. And let's see, yeah, text color is done. So next click the text, hit Shift plus space and search for emboss. Set the emboss style to emboss over instead of relief, and using power we can dial in the strength of the emboss and tweak the angle a bit if you want. Same trick works for adding a glow effect, I think it'll work nicely here too. And same idea applies to blur, but the blur should actually start on the 3 background layers, not the text itself. So let's pick the layers that has the text sitting on it, that's the closest layer, and add a blur. Now we keyframe the blur on the first frame and on the last frame wherever we can see this layer. On the first frame I set a light blur around 3, on the last frame about 6 or 7. This gives us the effect where, as we push in, the blur ramps up because the object is too close to the camera. And you can also select the spline, choose blur size, select everything by hitting Command plus A, then press S. That gives us a smooth ease in and ease out on the blur instead of snapping it straight to full speed. So now go back, copy the blur and paste it onto the text. That way the text gets an identical blur to the first layer, so it clearly reads as being on the exact same level as that layer, matching how it reacts to the camera. On to layer 2, same deal, add blur, keyframe the first and the last frame where we can see this layer, roughly here. Set it to that same blur level around 6, 7. For the first frame I would go with a lighter blur around 1.5, 1.9 to signal it's less out of focus than the closest layer, but not completely in focus. And same spline trick, just Command A, S, and we're good. Then go to layer 3, identical process, add a blur, set the last frame where we can see it, keyframe it, jump to the first frame, keyframe it again, set blur to 0, I want max focus here, and on the last frame around 7. And look, 3 layers, each blurring at a completely different rate, which really sells the illusion that they are on a different depth levels, which is actually true, because it's not an illusion, because we really did a few different depth levels. And now I just copy this text, copy the image plane from the other layer where I want to drop the text, paste it, attach it to the merge, and now our text sits at exactly the same depth level as layer 2. Because we want our first text to line up with layer 1, second and third text with layer 2, and a fourth text with layer 3. So swap in the actual text you need, then use the image plane to position it as if it's attached, again roughly in the spot that partially blocks our view of the main characters. Rotate it via transform on the z-axis, drop it down a bit, and that's basically all that we can need it. And now it moves along together with everything else. Really, the only thing missing here is the blur. Since our blur is already dialed in, we just copy one over and paste it, and boom, it blurs exactly like layer 2. Next, we just copy his text again, and honestly we can copy the whole composition here because both of those texts are in the same second layer level. Then I just swap in the right text piece by piece and use the image plane each time to position it exactly where you want it to sit. And for the last piece of text, grab an image plane from layer 3, wherever you want it attached, connect it to the merge, swap the text in. I want this one at the very end, use the image plane to nudge it into position, slightly forward right there. It needs a little rotation here, a bit more, so we can clearly see where we are placing it. And now just a nudge right and nudge up. Yep, that's it. Now apply that same blur we used on layer 3 again, just copy it over, and there you go, the text effect is basically finished. Text living on the 3 different depth levels, each blurring differently. This isn't just text slapped over the footage, it's text that actually lives inside the composition. That is like the coolest part, right? So the only thing left to really make this shot pop is animating our character Cooper flying towards his daughter. For that we keyframe him on the last frame. I will keyframe X, Y and rotation Z. And I wanted to let him drift a bit so he ends up level with her. And now the first frame. So basically the last frame is ready, and the first frame we just rotate him a bit this way and pull him away from her, up and back, so he'll end up flying towards her over the course of the shot, which reads as a really great piece of motion. And same trick, we just go to spline, Command A, select all, S, and done. At this point the shot is basically finished. I don't see anything else that needs fixing. It looks great to me, so now we can head to the edit page and start layering effects on top of the footage. For that we go to the asset pack, drop in a dust overlay, strip out the audio, maybe trim the opening seconds where it's just a black screen with no particles yet, and that gives us this look. We trim off what we don't need. Click into the inspector, switch the composite mode from normal to screen, but it's way too strong as is, so we bring the opacity down to somewhere around 8 or 9, which feels like the sweet spot. And next I add a new track and drop an adjustment clip onto it. The adjustment clip is there so we can stack effects on top without touching the underlying footage. First effect will be zoom blur. Since we're pushing forward, I want a subtle zoom blur, turn on the center, bump extension up a bit so it only blurs the edges, and dial back zoom. And the next effect will be vignette, bump up its size so it's more visible and adds a touch more cinematic feel to the frame. And basically that's it, the shot is fully done. You could still color grade it, but honestly it already looks great as is. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you got any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'll answer every single one. And if you're interested in collaborating, feel free to reach out too. Everything is in the description of the video. And in the end, don't forget to subscribe. In the next videos we're gonna be creating even more exciting animations, so see you in the next one.